So this is a quick run through of the case uses. I suspect on the exam that there will be more than one question that will ask you whatever case something is, and then what is the use. The case usually can determine by how it's translated in context. You also have Perseus that I've obviously shown. So now let's walk through it really quickly, all of the cases, including the vocative and locative, which are not on here, but I will add. First and foremost, you have the nominative. If it's nominative, it's either functioning of the subject, we also all know what that is, or the complement. Remember that the complement is either the predicate nominative or the predicate adjective that is linked to it. So you would say something along the lines of Marcus est puer. Marcus is a boy. Boy would be the complement predicate nominative. If it were an adjective instead of a noun, like Marcus est laetus, it would be then a predicate adjective. Genitive. You know that genitive is going to be translated of or apostrophe s. I'll go ahead and add that. Nevertheless, first and foremost, you have the possession that will show ownership or possession, obviously. Part of a whole, which would be part of something. But there are these next two that I have not talked about at length, but we have probably encountered them in AP Latin. It would be one, the genitive of characteristic. So, sum vir, I am a man, maximi, virtutis of great virtue. It's giving the characteristic of a noun, and so therefore it is your genitive of characteristic. There is something called the ablative of description that is rather similar to it. I could easily go down here as the example. Let me go ahead and copy it and then go down to the ablative of description. There we are. And so instead of maximi, it would be maxima with a long A. Let's go ahead and put that down there. And then, of course, virtute. And that becomes, obviously, I am a man with great virtue. And so you can see that the genitive of description is very much like the ablative of description, or genitive of characteristic, if you would like. Objective genitive is when the genitive is going to be the object of something. So it says, amorem dulcis habeo. Dulcis is our genitive here. We're substantizing the word sweet, like we say, I'm on a diet, I'm avoiding sweets. You're literally avoiding sweet foods. And so it is saying, I have a love, and then the candy here, the sweet, is the object of that love. And so it's what we call the objective genitive. The next one is dative, and for those, here we have indirect objects. Remember, they are the receiver of the direct object. So I, the teacher, subject, give, your ditransitive verb that will have both the direct object, candy, it's what I give, and then the person receiving that candy, that receiver of the direct object, would be the indirect object. It could be a dative of reference, which would be to or for. To whom or something is going to refer. Right after that, I would put your dative of possession, which you will find a lot. I have it here. It's really kind of like a subcategory, but it would be something along the lines that you see a lot in book 6, in which you could say something along the lines of magistro sunt, and so you'll very often have it with a form of the verb to be. So there are for the teacher, do I filii, 2 daughters. You see this in the Aeneid with the statement made by Juno when she was talking to Aeolus, and she says, there are for me 12 nymphs, or however many there were, 14 nymphs. And so therefore that's your dative of possession. Special verbs, remember, like in group 4 principal parts, there are certain verbs whose objects by their very nature. You have verbs like persuadeo, persuade, you can have parco, spare, and the list goes on and on. Look at group 4 principal parts in the groups of principal parts. I should have had that pulled up already, but oh well. I suppose we can go find it really quickly. Let's go do that just for funs and giggles. Go to my website. There it is. Latin 1, there we go. Let's get that out of the way, make it rather small. Latin 1, groups, principal parts. Let's see if we can find it really quickly. Principal parts, principal parts, principal parts. There we go. And let's look at some very popular verbs that require dative objects. And right there. So all of these would require their objects to be in the dative case. So approach, favor, harm, obey, we've had that one. Confido, to have confidence in. Trust, essentially, trust or believe. Occurro is meet. Parco is spare. Servio is serve or be a slave to. And prosum means benefit. But there are other ones that we have encountered as well. So hopefully we can remember those. But back to our case uses. And then your dative of agent. Remember that with a future passive periphrastic, you will have a dative of agent. Usually your agent with a passive verb is expressed with an ob or an ah, and with an ablative. That's what we call the ablative of personal agent. But when it's something must be verbed, then instead of saying something along the lines of must be verbed by the father, usually it would be a patre, and that it would be a patre, just like that. We've seen it 1,000 times by the father. There it is. When it is a future passive periphrastic, it would just simply be patri, and it would be then in the dative case with a long I. But you can really have that dative of agent with anything, to be honest. All right, so next we have the accusative case. The accusative case is one that comes up quite often. You could have a direct object, the receiver of the action. It answers whom or what after the verb. Objects of certain prepositions, and remember those prepositions are going to then determine what is the case of its object. Exclamation, and then obviously you don't want to forget subjects of an indirect statement could be accusative, and remember it is the Greek accusative of respect. We see this with things like with Dido, when it was de missa vultum. And remember that that was having been sent down. And then what is the vultum? It's with respect to her face. And so very often, what you could do to understand it is that you could make this perfect passive participle or whatever passive it might be, turn it into active as though it were a deponent verb, and then that would function as the direct object. And so having been sent down, instead saying having sent down, it would be the direct object, having sent down her face. But here, the literal is having been sent down with respect to her face. The reason why my professor liked to call it the Greek accusative of the body part is because very often it will be with a particular body part. Now we go to the ablative. Now remember that you can recognize ablatives, one by their form, and two in the translation by, with, because of, from, in, on, at. I call it the adverbial case because it is the case that will tell you something about the action. And so in this instance, it can tell you when the action occurs, or within what time the action occurs, where the action occurs, or from where. So essentially ablative of time, ablative of place, either of those. Accompaniment, remember that accompaniment is going to have the word cum. It is with whom the action is occurring. You can also have the cum appear with an ablative of manner, but manner is an abstract quality. It's how you graduate. Cum laude. Laude is praise from laus laudis, and then this would be telling you the manner in which you do something. And so therefore, magna could be added to it, obviously. So cum is with it's going to be actually a person doing the action with someone, not the manner in which it is being done. Means gives you the ability. That's how you can tell the difference between manner and means. Means gives you the ability to do it. An instrument is merely a subcategory of means. So Dawes beat Geta with a stick. It is the ability. It's giving him the ability, but also you could be more specific and say instrument. So really, instrument is more like a subcategory of means. The ablative of cause. The ablative of cause is the reason for something. So having been atonitus, astonished is what, of course, Aeneas is, and then it was monitu by the warning of the gods when Mercury came down and yelled at them. And so that would be your ablative of cause. You could also say means, I suppose, but cause would be it there. Personal agent, remember that it is telling us who is doing the action when the verb is expressed passively. So you could say, you know, my wife burned dinner. That would be my wife as the agent, the subject of a active verb. But if it were dinner was burned, you could leave off the who did it, but you would say, patre, by my father, let's say, who has been known to burn something here or there. Ablative description, I've already talked about it. Sum vir maxima virtute. Specification is much the same, but you could say something along the lines of sum, let's see what I am. I am litus. And then it would be the same with maxima virtute. I am happy with great virtue. There could be several ways in which someone could be happy. Let's go ahead and copy that and paste that, turn this into the italicized. And so the difference between specification and description is that description describes a noun, whereas specification tells you specifically the way in which the adjective is applicable. Because you'd be happy in many ways. You'd be happy in someone's misfortune, your schadenfreude. And so therefore, Here it is with greatest virtue, telling us specifically in what way he's happy. Ooh, let's go with, instead of laetus, let's go with fortis. Because you can be strong in many different ways. You can be strong in your kindness. You can be strong in your generosity. But here you can also be strong in your virtue. You have the ablative of origin. We saw this with natus, the one having been born, de in which it was having been born from the goddess. The ablative of origin, it is from whom or what you originate. And so therefore, that is an example of that. Italicized. The ablative of price, any time that it is indicating the price of something, I doubt we would have that, or an ablative of material. And so you could say something would be fortis and then aere. Here, that aere is your ablative, and it is bronze. And so it's the ablative of material, the way in which it is. To be honest, I don't think that they would have many questions that would necessarily stray from the following ones. I imagine they would want you to be able to identify possession, part of whole, more likely than not. So we'll highlight those. I suppose subject, but yeah, if they ask about that, that's an easy thing. Lots of datives. I would say the datives, all of them, really are up for grabs as to what they would have. Especially, I have a feeling possession might be something they focus in on. So if something is showing possession, obviously, you could have that. For the accusative, I suppose direct object, but also I could see the subject of indirect statement as being a popular one. So remember, when there's an indirect statement, your accusative would be subject. And for these ablatives, I suppose accompaniment would be one they would like to ask about. Maybe means, instrument, manner, I suppose. Personal agent could get into the mix quite a bit. These others, I mean, there's like 1,000,000 to 1 chance they would ever ask about the ablative of origin or anything like that. Now, obviously, there are two that are missing. I should add them now. One is vocative. Vocative, remember, is all about the one direct address. And that direct address is the vocative form identical to the nominative, except for the fact that it is underlined. There we are. Yikes. I don't want to do that. There it is. That the vocative is identical to the nominative, except for when it is a second declension word that ends with US. And so if we're talking directly to Marcus, we would say, hey, Marque, and directly talking to him. The other example is that if your name were Cornelius, Cornelius, you get rid of not only the US, so you can see what I've just done there, and gotta go back, maybe go forward, eh? There we are, and we'll just put it back on the US. Usually, like we did, we just took off the US for Marcus. There it was. It had been US. Take that off. Turn to an E, and now we're talking directly to Marcus. Same thing for Cornelius, except that you take off not only the US, but you also take off that I, which is a form or a part of the stem, and then you just replace it all with a long I, and there it is. And so that would be Marque as directly talking to them, and then Corneli directly talking to him as well. We saw plenty of that. And then finally, the last one is going to be your locative case. So locative is going to be for only. Remember, cities, towns, small islands, and which they, when you put them in a particular form, it will be indicating the location without using a preposition. And of course, I could easily see if they do ask about locative, you could quickly figure out that. And it's just to show the location of something at that particular city, at that particular town, at that particular small island. And remember also, it is for the words domus, domi. You also have the word humus, humi, and also you would have, remember, rus, which is neuter, and then ris, which is going to be able to express its locative as well. So, nevertheless, that's my quick rundown on case usage. Hopefully, it will be of good help to you. If you have any questions specifically, particularly on the 2 practice exams, just let me know. I tried to keep it rather quick and fast, and hope that you benefit. Bye.